A lot of uranium charts are looking really good, like a breakout's about to happen. Cup and handles, we're going to be going over that for a lot of uranium charts. We're also going to go over Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, why it's really an energy war and a commodity war, and how this relates to uranium and how it could relate to the overall world supply, 40% of the world through Kazakhstan, as well as the US, how their coal plants, which are record numbers shutting down at the end of this year, could churn to nuclear power plants, as well as the overall uranium market this week and what I expect. But let's get this video to 1,000 likes. You guys can do it. You've done it many times. I'm really excited to make that new uranium documentary, and I make videos now daily for you guys, so please show support on the channel if you would. I'm really starting to like the look of this breakout on the uranium charts. Now, a lot of the big uranium charts, they're going to look very similar. So Cameco, that's UEC that I'll talk about the specific breakout. But you can see UEC and Cameco, they're almost identical. You can say Energy Fuels as well. A lot of these charts are looking just very similar.
The thing to do, I guess, is invest my money in some good stock. You know, something that zooms overnight. Happens, you know. Oil stocks and uranium.
Especially with the bigger volume stocks in uranium, they're very similar. Now, what I want to go through here is UEC. So UEC, since it's usually the leader in the pack of all of them, it's the cup and handle breakout. We are almost right at the exact textbook example. So from here to here, it's going on over 2 months, and we're about 3 to 4% from the peak here where we closed on Friday. And usually it's about 5%. We're less than 5% right now. This handle, we're kind of bouncing around this area. We're still waiting this week on Monday, tomorrow, to see if UEC is going to be able to get UEX assets. There's going to be the shareholder vote, and they have till 5 p.m. Now, we've pretty much typically stayed above this trend line long term the last 2 years. I really think that we have a lot of catalysts coming. We need the volume here. You can see the volume there, the selling volume. It's still low, but we need some sort of volume, something like this over here that we saw a breakout, or even more. There are catalysts for that, and the chart is looking pretty good. So it's not just UEC, it's, you know, Cameco, it's Energy Fuels. They're very similar, but usually UEC leads the pack. Now UEC and Cameco, as I've said before, hit those 11-year highs back in April. So it is very possible. And obviously this week, there were some big catalysts. The inflation bill is really big for nuclear. So we could see a breakout in a lot of these charts, very, very similar. So coal will account for 85% of the US electric generating capacity retirements this year by the end of the year, 85%. That is a lot of electricity that's going to be retired. So overall, it's 14.9 gigawatts overall, and 85%, which is 12.6 gigawatts of that, is coal. Now you can see here, a lot of this is in the central north and northeast in the US. Now, only one really nuclear plant closed, which is still 5%. Okay, so the majority though is coal plants. Now, these coal plants can be retrofitted into, like TerraPower has done, into nuclear power plants. And that, I think, is a big future catalyst for a lot of these coal plants that have been closing. And all of the tax breaks that they're going to be getting, these utilities, a lot of the government help, the billions and billions of dollars, they could use that money to transfer these plants into nuclear power plants. And this type of demand is not accounted for. So it is on my radar, and I think that's going to help the US a lot. And there are other mainstream articles about this on Market Watch. US climate bill, could coal communities shift to nuclear? And, you know, as I said before, TerraPower's already done this. This is Bill Gates. They've done it up there in Wyoming. There was this article that was put out by the Washington Post, and it was about the over $12 trillion in commodities and assets that Ukraine has, the energy assets. And this was covered by Russian media. Now, we're going to go over it. It has subtitles here at the bottom. Even without annexing, they have control over all these assets. And back in January, I was saying that I think that Russia was going to invade Ukraine, and really this was an energy war. I said I think that Kazakhstan's next, and I'm going to show you some alarming data that might prove that 40% of the world's uranium is at risk after we watch this. So it overwhelms me with pride, and this is them speaking. At least $12.4 trillion worth of Ukraine's energy, metals, and minerals are now under Russian control. That figure accounts for nearly half of the dollar value of the 2,209 deposits and the Ukrainian mining and steel industry executives. Kremlin has seized 41 coal fields, 27 natural gas sites, 14 propane sites, 9 oil fields, 6 iron ore deposits, 2 titanium ore sites, 1 strontium site, 1 lithium site, 1 uranium site, 1 gold deposit, and a significant quarry of limestone, previously used in Ukraine's steel production. Moscow sees 11% of Ukraine's oil deposits, 20% of its natural gas deposits. Coal is by far the most abundant of the deposits that are concentrated in the east, where Moscow has made the most inroads. Should the Kremlin succeed in annexing the Ukraine territory it has seized, Kyiv would permanently lose access to almost 2/3 of the ore deposits as well. Stores of natural gas, oil, and rare minerals. They go on to say more about this propaganda, especially about food, wheat and these exports and agriculture. 8 million of fertile croplands that they have there, the grain, corn, melon fields. Those are very promising territories. So as you can see, this is all approved by the Russian government, okay? They pretty much tell them exactly what to say. It's all propaganda war machine, okay? As all wars have pretty much always been, is about not just power, but assets, okay? Oil, commodities, minerals, food, and the control of all this. Really energy, the Z plant, right? The Z plant is worth tens of billions of dollars, and especially with inflation in this economy, it'd be very hard to get up something of that size in that area. It's the biggest in Europe. And this Washington Post article really kind of highlights what the $12.4 trillion in lost wealth. This is a lot of assets, okay? This is what it's really about. And guess what? There's even more critical assets, uranium in Kazakhstan. And we're going to talk about that. So Kazakhstan, so I've been saying this since January, and then in March I posted this long thread about why I think that uranium is at risk, and we'll go through this real quick, but there are some updates. So the updates right now, Kazakhstan had those riots in January, and in January, we started seeing inflation go up. But guess what? Inflation's now at 15%. It's a record high. This was when the riots started. The people there are already affected. They only make a couple $1,000s US a year, working in big fields usually. So they are now starting to sell their oil via another pipeline. This is to bypass Russia. Just recently, some of these Russian officials have admitted Ukraine was about these resources, as we've seen just in that video. Now, if Russia wants to really control and screw with the world, Kazakhstan is next. And it is very possible that there could be informants and people there that helped start the protest, that were a part of the Russian government. Because remember, Russia came in and squashed it instantly, almost like they had full control of it without having to use really much force. It really was about these prices in commodities, energy commodities. So these are some of the things that I highlighted, and it's only have got worse since. So the obviously rising inflation, higher energy prices, Tang dropped as well, and it fell 14%. This was back in March. Now the next thing, so these Russian sanctions, so many banks in Kazakhstan have had issues making these transactions because of their ties with Russia. Next, the China dependence. So Kazakhstan is very dependent on Russia, which Russia's invested $40 billion in Kazakhstan. China has invested $20 billion. Now the US, I believe, has invested close to $45 billion, as well as 60 million pounds of uranium for China's future supply. Next, the Belt and Road, BRI. This runs down the middle of Kazakhstan and is a lifeline of trade for China and Europe. It also could be a way for Russia to receive goods from Europe via Kazakhstan with re-exports. This is what a lot of Russian officials have been saying, is they want to annex northern Kazakhstan, and this is one of the reasons why. And they can re-export these goods, obviously, and this is going to be a key asset, especially if these sanctions continue for years. And I think that that's going to be the next target. And what is Kazakhstan going to do? There's nothing they can do. All they can do is cry out to, the West and say, can you do something? But more than likely, nothing would happen. The CPC oil pipeline ships 1.2% of the world's oil, has been caught in this Russian sanction problem. This was one of the reasons that I talked about earlier. They're switching routes, which could really piss off Russia. Next, I was talking about these re-exported goods. This will bypass a lot of the sanctions on Russia, as Kazakhstan can get food and goods from Europe and re-export them to Russia. Now, what does Russia import from Kazakhstan? So this is a list here. These are some of the items that they actually import, which is a lot. This was 5.81 billion. They're not supposed to re-export these goods. It's possible that if they get caught up in this and they're trying to, follow what the West is saying, they didn't want any countries helping Russia, they could get caught up in this. So next was Russian annexation of Kazakhstan. Many leaders in Russia have been calling for this. Okay. So there are articles on it. There are videos of Russian leaders, that are actually talking about this. So as we know, the Russian uranium ban is still on the table. They need to release it. but they've wanted to get this inflation bill out, which they have. So I think next it's going to be more sanctions on Russia they're going to be looking at. So it's not just me, there are other people talking about this. So a new article today, the economy minister eyes restarts of more nuclear reactors. So he's actually calling for 10 nuclear reactors, okay? So it's actually more, and I think it's gonna be a lot more than that. They've got a bunch. So it is nice to see him talking about it again today. Now, what does this mean? We're talking about a massive uranium demand that's coming, 150 new nuclear reactors. SPUT secured 38 million pounds. Okay, that's this green line here. I'll click on this in a second. The demand is over 200 million pounds. Honeywell in 2023 is going to wipe out the secondary supply. 700 million pounds of contracting is coming. Russia and Kazakhstan supply risk that I just talked about. Secondary supply is cut in half compared to 2010. We'll look at that. The first thing is, look at this. SPUT, look how much SPUT took out of the market last year. And this is not just mined uranium. This is fuel. This takes a long time to make. This really to me is a lot more. It should be really up here because I think that just mined uranium primary supply, it takes years to make, right? Multiple years. It's a long process. So Kazakhstan still is taking up a big amount, but as you can see, Russia, this is at risk, and also this is at risk down here. Okay, and then Honeywell, this overfeeding. Honeywell restarts, it's going to really eat up that secondary supply. And if you compare it to 2010, secondary supply was very large. Now it's small. Okay, it's a lot smaller. And this was what really kind of held back and put uranium in a bear market, having an oversupply of the secondary supply, right? Now we don't have that anymore. Kazakhstan, this could be at risk. This is at risk. This is eating into all of this. And in less than a year, they got this. So that's what we're looking at right now. It's going to get really crazy out there. And, don't just take it from me. Take it from Barney 5.
The thing to do, I guess, is invest my money in some good stock. Something that zooms overnight. Happens, Oil stocks and uranium.
And as Barney 5 said, it does happen in uranium overnight sometimes. And this is the update from the close. If you look at all the uranium stocks in the past month, we've got at least majority of them are up 4 to 60%. Now, the top uranium stocks, majority of them with the bigger market caps, they're at least up 25, 28%, right? We've seen Paladin 35%, Energy Fuels is 28%, so is UEC 28%. So it is a nice move, especially for a larger uranium market cap stock. It's going to be an exciting week. That energy bill that is passed, the president's going to sign it. I think it'll have a big effect on energy markets, the overall market, especially uranium for nuclear power plants. And go ahead and comment your like number and let me know, when did you first invest in uranium? What month and what year? I want to kind of see how, what investors are in here. And also comment what other sectors you guys are watching.